Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things Lego. Hit the link below to find a store near you.
My name's Patrick Higgins, and these are the pieces of cinema. It's kind of in a timeline order here. So starting off, we have Frankenstein from 1931, a classic Universal horror film. This one is built completely in black and white, or I guess gray, to represent the black and white that they filmed it in. You've got Dr. Frankenstein there on the left, his monster, and then Igor, his little servant helper guy, on the right there. Cool floor technique. Did that by taking these 2x2 tiles and putting them on jumpers at an angle, and you'll see that technique on a few other builds later on.
It almost gives it like a 3D pop as it overlaps the base there.
Yeah. You'll see that on a few other ones as well that kind of pop out of their base.
And then you have some movement in the next one as well.
Yeah, this one here is King Kong from 33. This is a scene everybody knows of the airplanes flying around King Kong. He climbs up to the top of the Empire State Building carrying somebody that he was trying to capture, and they come and shoot him down. This utilizes the, I think it was in the 80s and 90s, Lego made these 9-volt battery pack things and motors that attach to it. So it's 100% Lego for the motor and all that.
Nicely hidden in the side there.
Yes, there's a shaft that goes all the way up through the building to make the plane spin around. So next is 37 is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Walt Disney's first, actually the first full-length feature film in animation. I'm going to remove the roof here to see a little bit more of the inside. You've got Snow White, Dopey, I think he's standing on Happy, and then Grumpy and Doc in the background there. There's a gear on the back that when you turn it, they can do their little dance. This is the scene where they're all just celebrating in the dwarves' cottage, and they stack on top of each other to be up with the same height as Snow White. And there's a bit of a sinister thing going on over here with the evil queen in her witch disguise, ready to give Snow White the poisoned apple.
I love how you include, movement, whether it's motorized or even just the gear like that, so there's always something that kind of makes it pop.
Yeah, a lot of my more recent ones, I wanted to add something to make them, each one really special. Whether that be movement or lighting, you'll see that on a few, and or just like little Easter eggs. So next is the Wizard of Oz. It's a pretty simple build. It's really the main showcase is the minifigures from the Lego Movie 2 CMF series. Excellent figures, very well detailed, and apparently really valuable now. So I've had to keep an eye on them today. But, they're following the Yellow Brick Road like they do in the movie, singing all about it. Got the whole gang there. This next one is 1956 is Godzilla. Or is it 54? It's one of those two.
I was going to say, you're going to have a very impressive, memory with all the years as we move through here.
Yeah, I'll probably miss a few. I'm sure the comments will correct me. But, yeah, that was the first appearance of Godzilla. It was all black and white, all Japanese. They adapted it for American audiences with subtitles. But yeah, that kind of started a big popular genre in America with just big guys in costumes with miniature cities.
Monster type stuff?
Yeah, I think they're called kaiju monsters. Next is the Ten Commandments from, actually I think this one is 56 and Godzilla is 54. It's a 4-hour film, so I haven't watched it just yet. But it's about the book of Exodus in the Bible with Moses and parting the Red Sea to get the Israelites away from the Egyptians. I went for kind of a forced perspective thing here with the stacks of studs for the water and just a few Israelites there. And Moses is there on the right with the red. This like a really iconic moment where they use, I'm not even sure what the technology is. It's like, I think they use some matte paintings and some footage, laid over footage, just to make the water look like it's shooting up out of the sea. For 1950, whatever, it was very innovative.
I like how you've been adding to these builds for years now, but you still haven't found time to watch the entirety of the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, I have a checklist on my phone of the movies that I've built and the movies that I've seen, and it's maybe like 75%. So I'll eventually get to watching all of them. This next one is Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, 1960. Really, really iconic horror film, movie. Hitchcock is kind of seen as a master in his craft, and the film is shot in black and white, so this is another one that you'll see using black, white, and gray, and that same tile pattern that I've used before. I really like how the bathtub shower thing sits in there. It was really satisfying because with the tiles angled like that, all the studs were kind of offset, especially with the wall. So I had to use extra jumpers to get just in the right place. I think it looked really good. And I used a gray cape for the shower curtain because he pulls the curtain back and then stabs her. So you kind of get that whole action going on there. For this one is 007 Goldfinger, kind of a representation of the James Bond movie franchise, which I think is the longest running franchise in film history. The first one came out in the 60s. This one is from 67. It was really hard to decide on a James Bond movie just because of this so many of them, and they're all really good. But this is the third in Sean Connery's kind of filmography.
Is that a tactic you took with some of these here, where some of these movies have a lot of sequels and various, similar movies made over the years? So do you just kind of choose one and that represents the whole kind of genre?
Yes. Yeah, you'll see that later with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and to an extent Star Wars, because there's so many movies for those, and I didn't want to oversaturate the whole project with here's something from the prequel series, here's something from the original, here's something from the sequels. I kind of wanted to have a really broad spectrum of genres here.
The next one has some great lighting in it.
Yes, this is How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original from '66. Or, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's totally fine. You can say decades. That works as well. There's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, already losing the dates, but this is the animated version from the '60s. Kind of really accurate depiction from Dr. Seuss's original book to film. I think the script was actually just reading the book. Interestingly enough, the person who reads it is Boris Karloff, who is the same actor who played Frankenstein back in '31, which that's just a little fun fact. He plays the Grinch and Frankenstein.
There you go. Fun movie trivia, so there's no room for dates when you've got all that in your head.
Right. The lights are just, I think they're called fairy lights. You can get them at Walmart or Amazon or whatever, and those are specifically for Christmas, and you just wrap it around. There's a lot more of them under it, but I didn't need that many, so just tucked them up under the little base there. This next one wasn't originally on my list, but after I watched the movie, I had to add it. It's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, one of the best films I've ever seen. It is the third in the Dollars trilogy of Western films, or spaghetti westerns, because they call it that because the director was Italian. But it's that genre of film kind of is what made Clint Eastwood such a big name in Hollywood. He was kind of the king of the westerns at the time, well, him and John Wayne. And this scene features him and the two antagonists of the film in a kind of a three-way Mexican standoff in a graveyard. It's really cool.
Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yes, it's a 3-hour film, but every minute of it you'll enjoy. This next is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1970-ish. There's a minor play feature on it that lets the chocolate waterfall kind of trickle a little bit. It's just a little too small of a build to motorize something like that. This is not really based off any specific scene from the film. It's just when they go into the room where everything is edible. It's got you can pick parts off of the grass and the chocolate waterfall, all that stuff. So and then there's Willy Wonka there with his cane and his top hat. I think the top hat is from the Penguin and the torso is from the Joker. So
Very nice.
next is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. This has kind of been a fan favorite tonight. It really has a big cult following, the Monty Python movies. This is the scene where Arthur, the King of the Britons, cuts off the arms of the Black Knight in the forest, and the Black Knight is still ready to fight. It's a comedy fantasy movie if you haven't seen it, so it doesn't take itself very seriously, which might be part of the reason it's so popular now. Next is Jaws from '75, the first of a few Spielberg movies that I've got here. Jaws is a really excellent movie. I wanted to brick build the shark just to give a sense of how big it is, and it kind of calls back to the original where they actually made the animatronic shark for all of the scenes, and then it didn't work for half the movie, so they didn't get to show it very much. But this is the very end of the movie where Jaws has just about sunk the Orca. That's the name of the boat that they're on, and all the other crew is dead, and all that's left is his name leaves me, but all he's got left is his gun, and then he shoots an air tank that's in Jaws' mouth to make him explode. Spoilers, but it's been out since '75, so you've had a little bit of time to see it.
We can forgive that.
This next one is one of my favorites that I've built, is Superman from 1978, the first of many superhero movies that you'll see. This is kind of the first that really took off, if you don't mind the pun, in theaters. Christopher Reeve's Superman, really excellent portrayal of the character. Just a charming movie. It's a little slow in the first half, but then the second half really picks up with Superman saving everybody and defeating Lex Luthor and his plan. The most iconic and maybe infamous scene is him reversing time by flying around the world. I used the Lowell sphere technique to make the globe, and it is also on one of those 9-volt battery motors that you saw on King Kong.
Shout out to the legendary Bruce Lowell there with that design.
Yes, and shout out for him sharing that design with the LEGO community.
Very cool. And then we start on the next row down.
Yes. We're in a timeline, so now we're to '79 with the Muppet Movie. This is one of the newest ones. Also wasn't originally on the list, but after I watched the movie, I was like, yeah, this is really good. I need to include it somewhere. This is the beginning of the movie within the movie. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But it's Kermit sitting on a log singing Why Are There So Many Songs About Rainbows. It's a very iconic Muppets track. One Easter egg that I included in it, you can actually see on the side here, Jim Henson is included in the build, puppeteering Kermit the Frog.
I love that. Super cool.
After seeing the Muppets CMF series come out, that was another reason, yeah, I need to put Muppets on here somewhere. But it's a really great movie, very funny, holds up today. Highly recommend it. It's on Disney Plus too. So, Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back. This is probably the most iconic scene in movie history. The "I am your father" moment from the 5th movie, or 2nd, depends on who you ask. Recently upgraded with the Bespin Duel minifigures from a few years ago. I really like the arm printing on Darth Vader. That's really cool. I did some greebling technique. Greebling is where you take a bunch of random parts that don't look like they go together and make something that looks like techie, I guess.
Mechanical, sort of.
Mechanical. So greebling is used for that little tower thing there. One of those gray flex tubes makes the railing. Just some cool part usage throughout, I think. Mm-hmm. Another really popular one has been The Shining. This is the Here's Johnny scene where he takes the axe to the door, chasing after his wife. You can see him poking through there. And you can actually rotate it and see that there's a little bit more of the room. The scene is kind of shot in two different spots, one facing this way, where you can see him actually chopping the door, and then another one facing this way, where you can see him poking his face through the door. I wanted to implement that somehow. I found that this direction is usually the better way to display it because people can recognize that a little bit more.
You just catch that glimpse of him through the door.
Right, yeah. I had to brick build the door, obviously, to get the hole in it. Used a lot of wedge plates for that. It doesn't open because it's a little too tight in there, but it's okay. The door is supposed to be locked anyway. That's why he's cutting it down. So next is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yet again, that tile technique. You'll find that I really like that tile technique. And it's got Indiana Jones grabbing the golden idol, replacing it with a bag of sand. Everyone knows that moment. Very tense moment at the start of the film. Harrison Ford plays it very well, and Spielberg's direction is always masterful in that. I missed out on the original wave of Indiana Jones sets, so I did not ever have the idol. I had to get it on Bricklink. In its place was a C-3PO head until that one came in.
Continuing to improve, I like that. Upgrading when you can.
Right, yeah. Next, right after that is yet another Spielberg. He was kind of popping off in the 80s.
He made a couple decent films.
Yeah, just a few. You may have heard of them. But this is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I've seen this one. It's really childish, but very charming. Nice little sci-fi fantasy epic. Or not epic, but, it's just kind of a movie for everybody. Everyone can find something in it. Simple build, just a few trees and then the night sky behind. I used the 1x1, I think they're called lamp bricks that have the little, the stud opening, and put those little teeth thing on the other side to make it look like stars in the distance. And then the moon with the bicycle and Elliot and E.T. flying in front of it. Iconic imagery. I think that's the logo he uses for his production studio, actually. So he's kind of seen how
iconic it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This next one is also new. Ghostbusters, 84. Yes.
You went really big with this one.
Yeah. I've only seen Ghostbusters once, and the only scene that I really remember that well was when they're fighting the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and he is enormous in that movie. So I took inspiration from the Lego Dimensions figure for Stay Puft, and kind of recreated him in a larger scale, minus the legs. And then put the 4 Ghostbusters taking him on right there. And just a little fun fact that only I know about, the original Stay Puft Marshmallow Man minifigure is inside that Marshmallow Man's head, which is just kind of fun. Like, I know these little secrets that are in there.
Yeah, so then as you see people walk up, you can, know what's happening behind the scenes.
Yes, exactly. This next one is Back to the Future from 85. It uses the Dimensions figures, which are a little updated from the ones from the original idea set, but the DeLorean, or the half of the DeLorean that's on there, is the original idea set. I just kind of broke it a little bit to cut it in half to make it look like it's like halfway through traveling through time. And then it's got the little fire trail behind it because it leaves fiery tire treads as it's approaching 88 miles an hour. So pretty simple build there, but everyone likes Back to the Future, had to include it. Mm-hmm. This next one is Aliens, the sequel to Alien. Really creative with that name, I know. It is Ripley taking on the Alien Queen in the Power Loader mech. I really like my design for the mech. In the movie, she kind of sticks her arms through the arms of the mech and sticks her legs through the legs of the mech. And that's hard to recreate with a minifigure, so I had to actually detach all of her limbs from her body and just position them look like they were touching in the right places, but they were positioned to look like she was manually controlling the mech.
Yeah, that works well.
This next one is, I think it's my newest one. I built it for a Halloween post on my Instagram. Is the Silence of the Lambs from 91. I think it won Best Picture and several other Academy Awards. It's a very well-known, well-received film. And this is the scene where the doctor is interrogating Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, which I think he's the one that won an award for his performance. He's a cannibal and is giving the doctor advice on another case that she's working on with another dangerous killer that's going on. I think that might be the last of like the horror films. And something interesting about three of my horror films that I've included all have a toilet. I don't know how I managed that, but Psycho and The Shining and The Silence of the Lambs all have a toilet, and I don't really know how I managed that, but
Maybe something to do with the horror film genre, you know, it just brings it out.
yeah, I guess so. Next is the Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Terminator 1 is excellent, but I prefer Terminator 2 just because it's a little bit more of like a thriller, and I think it ups the stakes really well. And I think the franchise should have ended with Terminator 2 and not continued, but that's beside the point. This is the scene where the Terminator from the first movie is escorting or rescuing John Connor from the Terminator, I think it's T-1000, who is like the shape-shifting metal Terminator. And they're in like the city spillway, and he's on his motorcycle with his shotgun, and the other Terminator is chasing them in a big semi-truck. Very exciting scene. Next is Jurassic Park, yet another Spielberg. This one was built before that excellent diorama set came out last year, with the brick-built T-Rex and the new Ford Explorers, but I like the simplicity of mine. I used, well, the T-Rex from the original Jurassic, I think that one's actually from Jurassic World, and then the figures are from one of the few Jurassic Park sets that we've gotten inside of the Jeep there. Or not the Jeep, it's the Ford Explorer. And the stickers that are on the Ford Explorer are actually custom made because when I needed that one built, they hadn't had any Jurassic Park sets out yet. And so I got my mom, she's really crafty, and she made those stickers for me. So that was really cool.
It's interesting because you've been doing this for some years now to kind of see, what does Lego release and how does that affect then what you're able to build and update?
Yeah. A few of the builds that I've done have actually been done by Lego now. The Aston Martin from GoldenEye, or not GoldenEye, Goldenfinger, the Bespin Duel from Star Wars. A few things Lego started to do. But it's still pretty cool to compare mine to theirs. Nightmare Before Christmas from 91 as well. Or no, 93 rather. I don't remember the director's name. It's not Tim Burton, but I think he was an inspiration for the film. This is kind of a recreation of the movie poster, actually, with Jack Skellington standing against the moon with the little curled hill that he's on, and the pumpkin patch with the graveyard. Just some cool imagery. Gives me another Disney animation film, which we'll see a few more of later on. This next one is what everyone says is like the greatest movie ever. I don't really see it, but it's Pulp Fiction. It is a good movie, but
It's Tim Burton, I'm sorry.
Tim Burton is the director. Okay.
Shout out to Sisumgabot for coming in with the fun movie facts.
Okay. Tim Burton is the director. All right. But Pulp Fiction by Tarantino, his second film, but I think probably his most well-known. This is the scene where Vince and Jules are interrogating this guy about something he did with Marcellus Wallace's wife. And there is the suitcase here, which kind of serves as the MacGuffin of the film, what everyone is going after. But we never actually get to see what's inside, so it's a little mystery in the movie.
I love the minifig design there with those characters. They're very recognizable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I wish their jackets were unbuttoned, but Lego doesn't really make very many suits that aren't buttoned up. They like their minifigs to be well tailored. So, next is The Lion King. I think it is my favorite Disney animation movie. This is the opening of the film that everybody knows, where Rafiki is presenting baby Simba to the masses of Africa. I went for a bit of a forced perspective thing here with the larger rocks that are kind of coming out of the frame, and then the smaller trees below it. Brick built for Rafiki and Simba. I really hope one day Disney makes a Rafiki minifigure. I think that would really make that scene a little bit more recognizable. And right after that is yet another Disney animation or Pixar animation, for Toy Story. Toy Story was kind of the first of the 3D animated films. Really, kind of almost in the same way that Snow White really made a trend, as Toy Story did. This is the scene of the claw, where Buzz and Woody are inside the little claw machine and interacting with the aliens right before they're abducted by Sid. I got as many of those little alien guys as I could and crammed them in there. Some of them are not standing on the ground, but they're in there. So
That works perfect, and it takes us down to the third and final row. So it's amazing to see how this collection continues to grow, and you're able to find obviously kind of a limitless supply of iconic scenes that people can recognize.
Oh yeah, movies have been around since the early 1900s, and there's always new stuff coming out. Always a good collection of scenes to choose from. This one here is Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise has kind of re-entered the mainstream with Top Gun Maverick, and so I imagine. Oh, and then there's a new Mission Impossible coming out this year, so I imagine this one's going to be pretty popular later down the line. But this is the suspenseful scene in the first movie where he is dropping through the air vent in, I think it's the CIA office, to extract some data about something, I don't know, from this ginormous computer. The tension of the scene is you can't touch the ground because there's little pressure plates that'll alert the guards that someone's in there. So he has to drop down on this tripwire. Very exciting stuff. And that is the Lego Dimensions Ethan Hunt minifigure. Dimensions actually supplied quite a few of the figures for this, like E.T., Back to the Future, stuff like that.
It's got so much good IP-related stuff from that theme.
Yes, yeah. Dimensions, it had its misses, but the figures were definitely the best part. Next is Titanic. Hoping to catch this one when they re-release it in theaters this month. But this is the scene where Jack and Rose are at the front, and Rose just kind of stretches her arms out and takes in all the waves and the wind and stuff. Just a nice moment. It's just a little cut of the ship. Obviously, can't include the whole thing. This is kind of another one of the similar case to James Bond and Star Wars, where I made a little bit of the Titanic first, and then Lego made that enormous Titanic. Just kind of fun. This next one is The Matrix from '99. I really love this movie. It's an excellent sci-fi action movie. Really pushed the boundaries for what you can do with CGI and with camera movements to kind of show some of the camera movement stuff. And this moment is where Neo is avoiding gunshot, but the camera kind of pans around like this during the movie. So I added a little spinning motion there.
360 type viewpoint.
Yeah, and that camera movement was so popular that several movies after it kind of reference that moment. Like this next one, Shrek, for instance. There's a moment in Shrek where they reference the Matrix. But yeah, it was hugely impactful for the time. Shrek was 2001. I actually built this one on the 20th anniversary of Shrek, which is kind of fun. This is the opening scene where he's bursting out of the outhouse about to begin his day, and it has a little bit of a play feature where he can burst out of the outhouse there.
Dramatic opening door.
Yes. Yes. But everyone loves that moment. It's been memed to death, so that's a popular thing to show off here at the shows. This next one is a representation of the Lord of the Rings series. So that's the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, with Balrog stepping on, and Gandalf is ready to say, "You shall not pass." And I like this posing here with Boromir holding back Frodo from trying to save his old friend Gandalf. This next one is Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Jack Sparrow's not so heroic introduction, whereas he's approaching the dock with the sinking ship. A really funny moment, great character introduction for what he is, and I just wanted to include it here. I used these little 1x2 tan panel pieces to look like sails right above the waves. I didn't want to cut any sails, obviously, with how expensive they are. And he's just approaching the dock, and this little barrel and treasure map. There's a few piratey things. Next is SpiderMan II. I changed this one just slightly. It used to be Spider-Man when he was like using his webs to stop the train, and he was holding it in front. But I came up with a cool arm design for utilizing the design in the Daily Bugle set, and I changed the hands on the end. Thought it looked pretty cool for Raimi's Dr. Octopus. And so I just changed the scene up a bit to have them fighting on top of the subway, which is an equally exciting moment. And there's even a few frightened passengers inside. They've been in there for years now. Next is The Dark Knight, probably what everyone would say is the best superhero movie ever made. I don't yet have, well, actually I do. I have the newest Tumblr that came out a few years ago, or 2 years ago, with Heath Ledger's Joker and Christian Bale's Batman, but I haven't opened it yet. So these two are the stand-ins for now. It's the Joker with the 2011 head and hair, and then the 2008 Batman. This is the interrogation scene after Harvey Dent goes missing. Probably the best scene in the movie, I think. And that's saying a lot because it's a good movie. Mm-hmm. Yet again, we have a hard decision to make with Harry Potter. 8 movies, lots of great moments to choose from. My personal favorite is the third one, but this is kind of the culmination of what all the movies were leading up to. It was this last duel between Harry and Voldemort in the 8th one, Deathly Hallows Part 2. So kind of the Battle of Hogwarts has some wreckage of the buildings behind. One technique I used for the flooring here to make it look kind of cobbled is that some of these 1x1 tiles are not pressed down all the way, kind of give it a cobblestone feel, since Hogwarts is a castle. So
that works great.
Next up is Logan. I wanted to represent the X-Men franchise of movies somewhere because they kind of revitalized the superhero genre after Batman and Robin killed it in the late 90s. And Logan was kind of the perfect send-off to that franchise and that character. It's a really excellent movie, and this is Logan's death scene, which is really sad. He's spending his last few moments alive with his daughter right before he dies, and then he gets buried and the movie ends. But it's a great moment, great movie. Just another forest build. I've noticed now that I'm talking about them, there's a lot of these that are just set in the forest, but I guess it makes for a good movie setting. Mm-hmm. I used one of those brown neck brackets and the cheese slope because the way he dies is he gets impaled through a log, and that's what that's supposed to look like there. Next is Wonder Woman from 2017. This one is really important to cinema history because it was the first really successful female-led superhero movie. We've had several since then, but this one was kind of the first to do it. We've had female-led superhero movies in the past, but they never did very well with audiences, like Supergirl. That one was kind of a flop at box office, but this one was a big hit. And I really like it. It's set in World War I, so I got some trench warfare going on, and Wonder Woman just climbed up the ladder and is crossing no man's land, which is pretty symbolic since she's a woman crossing no man's land. It's kind of cool. Big explosion behind her just kind of illuminate her. Makes for a good photo op, I think. Next is the representation of the MCU. MCU has like 40 movies now or whatever. It's hard to pick just one moment, but I felt like at the time when I built this was the moment that everything was leading up to, was the snap in Infinity War. So this is where Thor is just almost killed Thanos, but not quick enough, and Thanos snaps away half of existence. I have strongly considered changing this scene to be something from Endgame, as that one is kind of a bigger movie nowadays and seems to have more of an impact. But I really like this one. That is a chrome gold Chinese knockoff Infinity Gauntlet, and it used to light up, but the batteries died. And there's those little batteries. I don't know how to find them, but yeah. I replaced that Thanos with the newest version of Thanos without the helmet. It was a little bit more accurate. This next one is Joker, which is actually the first piece of cinema that I ever built before piece of cinema was even a thing. I made this one mostly for the memes back in October of 2019.
I love how the inspiration for what is now all of these builds just started with the memes.
Yes. And I have made a few meme ones since then, like Shrek, but yeah, this is the one that started it all. Just the Joker stairs, they immediately became iconic. People were just dressing up in clown costumes and going to stairs just to dance and post on social media and stuff. There's a new Joker movie coming out. They confirmed that recently, so that's going to be pretty cool. But I think Joaquin Phoenix has a great Joker performance. Obviously, he won an Oscar for it, so must be pretty good. And these last two are from this year, actually, 2022. Or no, that was last year. 2022 is The Batman. I know I said earlier I didn't want to oversaturate with stuff, but I really loved The Batman so much that I included yet another superhero movie. This one lights up with just a little light brick. It probably doesn't show up too well, but the scene takes place in a dark, rainy subway. That's what these translucent antenna pieces are meant to represent, is rain. I saw someone use that technique somewhere on Instagram. The name leaves me, but and then we got the Batman facing down these thugs that were beating up this guy.
That's a great technique for kind of a driving rain effect. I don't think I've seen that one before. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks. Gotham is always rainy and always stormy and always awful place to live. So I wanted to represent that with like muted colors, rainy clouds, and there's puddles on the ground. It just does not look like a pleasant place to be. Last but definitely not least is Top Gun Maverick. This one kind of exploded at the box office this year. It was an excellent movie. Really blew me away. This is, I believe it's called an F-13 fighter jet, but I'm probably wrong. The wings do flip out just like they do when the ship is landing. They kind of clip into place there, and these little panels go up and down. That's how you, I think that's how you do elevation, altitude, whatever. So that is all of them.
Yeah, so how many total are there now?
There are 44 now. I'm aiming for 50 by the end of the year. I think the next one is going to be probably Casablanca, because as I was setting these out this year, I noticed I don't have anything from the 40s, and Casablanca is probably the best movie from the 40s.
Not just the 40s, close to all time.
Maybe.
One of my favorites. I love that. So I'll look forward to that then. That's very cool. But these are impressive, and I love to see all of the different details that you capture in each of these scenes and how you continue to add to it. So thanks for taking the time to take us through everything here, and I'm sure we'll see more in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much. And if viewers want to see more progress, the other 6 that are coming along this year, you can follow me on Instagram at awesome_mocks.
Perfect. We'll make sure to put a link in the description to that as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys, so much. I enjoyed this.